Welcome to another edition of the Stay True podcast, being brought to you by T.R.U.E Coaching, where triumph requires unlimited effort. I am your host, facilitator Lamont, and I am ecstatic to have my homeboy on today, Mr. Derris Hawkins-Smith. What's up, sir?
AKA the truth.com. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going really on, brother? This has been long in the waiting process. It's been a minute. I've been waiting to get you on, man, because I feel like you have a very good story. I think it's going to be motivational and inspirational to somebody, brother. So,
amen.
So Derris, to begin, I like to give my guests an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about themselves, and then we'll go ahead and jump in from that point.
Yeah, I'm sorry for that. My phone was not off like it should have been, brother. You would think by now I would have that down, but I apologize to your audience for my unprofessionalism. So a little bit about me, man. I'll give you the long but short version. Born in Gary, Indiana, 99% black, man. Moved to DeKalb, Illinois when I was 5 or 6, man. My kindergarten, which is 99% white. DeKalb was 45 minutes west of Chicago. It's a college town, Northern Illinois University. Actually, when my parents had met, that's how my father came and got us in Gary. He wanted, us to have a better life, aka, quote unquote, I should say, not aka, quote unquote, a better life, And so, as you can imagine, man, living in, growing up in that environment, a college town, a predominantly white town. In the 80s and 90s, and I tell people all the time, this is before hip hop became acceptable, before people started, oh yeah, they just be, so, I endured a lot, man. I went through a lot, from a mental standpoint. I think what we being like, like my father, even us, people of color, we have this, this idea of, living in these white communities, being a better, better living for, your family, a better education, a better, better living wage, and to some degrees, that is true. But for myself, growing up at that time period, the part that you don't, you kind of, don't take into consideration is the mental aspect of it, and of being one of only two, when I first got to that school, the elementary school I was at, one of two students of color in the whole school, and so not just in my kindergarten class, in the whole school, so and then, I was young, so maybe there was one other person I didn't see them or something like that, but I remember looking through that yearbook and I didn't see but us two. And so understanding, man, going from a mental standpoint, some of the things like I never heard the word nigga till I was on the playground. I was in first grade. I remember that. And I remember when the kid said it, just the vigor in his face, like the way he looked, like I knew it wasn't right, you know what I'm saying? So I remember in third grade, they closed so the school I went to, the elementary school, they closed one that was nearby. And my friends who I went to church with, so that's where black folks come together. So in this town, the other black folks, I knew from church, the friends I had, a good majority of them went to this school. So when they closed that school, they all they split them up, like between two, between the other elementary schools, and about a good majority of them came to my school because it was in close proximity. And so, man, when they came, I noticed, so I automatically had this confidence about me now, you know what I'm saying? Like, oh man, it's more of us now, you know what I'm saying? But then you start noticing, like, you don't see everybody like in class and stuff. And my father told me years later, man, that he had befriended one of the social workers, white woman, and she told him that they put the students, they were putting black students in special ed because the white teachers said they know how to handle them. And so think about that, man. Not because, they had behavior issues. They said they know how to handle them. You know what I'm saying? So, say like, if a white student's active, but we still see that today. Like when we see the disparaging in the numbers with with suspensions between students of color and their white counterparts. And so that's what was happening. Like, back then, really got away with it, in the 80s and 90s in all white town, And so think about detrimentally, what that did to those, to my friends, what I'm saying, from academic standpoint, they put you in these classrooms just based upon your behavior from what they deem to be, they don't know how to handle, so that's the first time I really witnessed, once he told, obviously not seeing them, in the classes like that, my father telling me years later about it. So that's when I really, first started, understanding what race, and the role it plays in systematic racism in education. And so then, I'll fast forward a little bit, so going through the school systems, and so throughout that time, even though growing up in a situation like that, my father was really, he was into his, into the Black culture, and so he'd have me watching Eyes on the Prize, man, and that's what really kept me grounded. Like I didn't, you will go through an imposter syndrome. There was a moment, in second grade where I was like, man, I wish I looked like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like, and and so or I wish I was like them. Oh man, this, that, and the other. But it's good that I had my father, and I had privilege. I always tell people that I had a privilege of having two parents in the household. And so I was fortunate in that situation. And so, he kept me on point with that, with the Eyes on the Prize. And that really, and Eyes on the Prize, if people aren't aware of what Eyes on the Prize is, a documentary series that took place throughout the civil rights movement, and even going into the 70s and 80s as well, going into the Black Panther Party and so forth. And it just showed you, like, it showed them, turn them hoses onto the Black people, the Black kids that was protesting, they put hoses on them, sick dogs on them. They showed when they were like lighting fire, they would show the image of a Black body hanging from a tree that they lit on fire, and took pictures in front of it, made postcards out of. And so for me to understand that, like, hey, this is America. And people see me, if you know me from social media, anybody that sees me on there, I always put hashtag This America when I see something that's racist or biased or discriminatory, man, because far too often they try to paint a different light of what America, they're, when I say they, I mean, the white folks, in this country, of what their interpretation of what America is, when they try to spoon feed us as far as history. And so if we don't pay attention, we fall for that, we start believing it. We are the reason why the cop puts a knee on our neck for 8-9 minutes, and we lose our life. We watch George Floyd get murdered, and people don't. There's people who don't empathize because he should have not resisted, and they say stuff like that. But they don't understand the history of violence and the history of the police department in the Black community. It's going all the way back to slave patrols. So I think it's important that if you don't know, to educate, for us to constantly be educating ourselves about ourselves, and that's in any race, any culture, or LGBTQ, whatever it may be, whatever you identify as with. Make sure you're educated about your culture and its contributions to this country, man, because they'll try to tell you something else, if you don't know better.
So hold on one second, Derris. Hold on. So let me remind the people, you're on the Stay True podcast, been brought to you by True Beast Coaching. I'm your host, facilitator Lamont. I got my man Derris Hawkins-Smith. Derris, what I want you to do, because I wanted you to talk a little bit, and I wanted you to set the tone on your, because it's all that what you just said is connected to your passion. And I want you to talk about, a little bit about what you're passionate about. We understand now we understand the why, but talk about what you're passionate about, because this is why you're here on this show, because of what it is that you're passionate about. Let's talk about it.
Man, it's students, and it's more particular, it's Black students and education, exposing them to, I would say all students, all students of color, and underrepresented, from underrepresented populations and first generation students, in particular as well. But me being a Black man, my experiences are based upon as a Black man in this country, growing up as a Black man. So I'm really passionate about Black students being exposed to education, and a 4-year education. A lot of times we get pushed into the 2-year education, the community college or a trade school, which is nothing wrong with that those choices. But I always tell students, if it's not an academic thing, where your grades aren't good enough, then you can go to a 4-year institution. And what happens is, if you're a first generation student, you don't have somebody in your household who's been through that process. A lot of times you're trying to navigate on your own. It's easy to, it's easy to just give up on it, and just settle for going for that 2-year school, or going to or a trade school, or just not going to school at all. Because if think about it, people in your friend groups aren't going to college. Like, none of my friends went to college but myself, at that time. And so, but I knew I had to do that, but so to remove myself from that situation, because I knew otherwise I wouldn't have went to college. If I'd have stayed home, it wasn't going to happen. So that's why I went away. But I'm really passionate about students getting that exposure to education. I used to work at a university, man, and that was the biggest thing. Was our thing was breaking down barriers and providing equity for students who, like, when I say breaking down barriers, I mean, like, having a FAFSA night at their school, like having financial aid people from the university there to help them navigate through that process, or having somebody, sending buses for the students and bringing the students, onto the campus, or going meet them where they're at, going to their, if it's a Black History program, a Latinx festival, LGBTQ Pride event, whatever it may be, going to these events, and having a table there, letting them know, hey, you can go to this school, because a lot of times, say you weren't there present that day when the school decided to go to the university, and now you missed out, you didn't get that exposure. And the reason why I'm passionate about that, Lamont, is because that exposure, man, can change its trajectory. You know what I'm saying? I know you've seen it. I've seen it where, a student comes on campus and, they try to act cool at first, but then their interactions on campus and then representation is big. They see myself. They see our current students of color. They see a director of this program or a faculty member, a staff member on campus, who looks like them. And they're like, man, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, so by the time they get home, now all of a sudden they're like, man, I want to get my grades up so I can go to this school, and that's how you start changing that mentality. But, it has to be, something where, they get that exposure early. That's when I worked at the university. I love when they used to bring middle school students on the campus, because I'm like, that's what they need early on, get that first exposure. And so that way they start getting the wheels turning. By the time it's your senior year, it's late in the game, to get the mentality of going to college. It's late in the game. You still can go, don't, by any means, but so it's important to get that exposure. Is that what you were referring to?
So I definitely wanted to bring out why, we talked about why, which was the beginning, and we talked about, where your passion, your core of your passion is. But then what also I want to talk about now is the importance of environment. And so yes. I know you lived in a few cities, and I understand that Chicago is being, basically your heart. So tell me how Chicago helped to kind of feed this passion that you have right now. Because we talk about Chicago a lot. I love Chicago, but right. Let's talk about
that. So like I said, I grew up in DeKalb, but then while I was in school, I was so when I went off to college, my first couple of years, I was still living in DeKalb when I would come home, and then my second year going to college, my mother ended up being on drugs out of nowhere. Like it literally came out of nowhere. Like it never, she's never, when I was growing up, never on drugs. Her and my father, they kids of the 70s, so they did drugs back then. My father admits he was a heroin addict. He's a deacon in the church now, hadn't done drugs in whatever years, but she hadn't done. My mother didn't even drink when I was growing up, and then my grandfather passed, and whatever, and so she was on drugs, and it caught me off guard, man. So it really put me in a place, man. And my big brother stepped in and let me come stay with him in Chicago during the school breaks and stuff like that. So when I was with my big brother, living in Chicago, we was in the hood, his mother, I always tell people when you live in Chicago, you got like 3 or 4 places you live at, you know what I'm saying? So, we was in the hood, but there was, other, when I say hood, I mean the projects, housing projects. And so, while we were there, that's what really, I was really green. I didn't realize how green I was until I got into into Chicago, into the city, and the city made me, man. It really did. It showed me, it's you hear this expression, but it's true. It's a cruel world, man. Like everything isn't what everybody's situations. I think that's what we get caught up in is we look at what we go through and we feel like, oh, so if you haven't really faced any adversity in your life, you feel like, well, these people, their lives are fine. What are they talking about? You hear this all the time. Like people don't understand, man. When people are going through stuff, and like I'll tell you like this. I used to make fun of drug addicts and dope fiends and this, that, and the other until my mother became one. You know what I'm saying? So like, then it's like, now I see now, like damn, you know what I'm saying? And I see the effect it has on the family. You hear, how it can affect all those around, they say when people are on drugs, it affects the people around them. You know what I'm saying? That's what happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, because the people who are on drugs, they doing drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like, as far as they're concerned, life is good. But for those who love them, you know what I'm saying? It breaks them down, man. So Chicago played a big part in just making me a man, and showing me, how the world was and how to, like, yes, you might be in this situation, but how are you going to get out of that situation? And I learned from a street standpoint, and then also learned, while I was in college at the same time, I had a unique experience being in college at the same time where, I had to, I was learning the street life, but when I was going back to school, I was learning from an academic standpoint, and so, having that, I don't know, I guess you could say best of both worlds type mentality, where I've had a little bit of both in me, and I was able to use that, and even in my, my classroom, in the projects I would work on and things like that, like I was an advertising major. So like creating these ads that were were focused upon, what I've seen, in my experiences, and things like that. And my professors couldn't relate to it, and I would get C's on these projects, and the white students were getting A's on like lame stuff, and it was driving me crazy, man. And I actually wrote a paper called Major Pain, where I just talked about the what I went through in that major, and not having any faculty or staff of color, especially non-Black. And I didn't feel like I was being represented, and then I remember one time I was in the hallway, man. I was walking past the director of the program, and it was me and him in the hallway, man. No lies, School of Journalism. And me and this dude were just me and him. And the white students loved this dude. I couldn't understand it. He would never talk to me. And we were walking right by each other. And this dude literally just looked up in the air when he got to me. And I was like, wow. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, how am I supposed to feel like, I'm getting a fair shake, at that school? In that major, in those classes, this is how I'm being treated with the professors. So going back to your question about your point about Chicago, man, like it was everybody I was meeting down there at my school, it was 5 hours away from Chicago, so majority of them were from Chicago. You know what I'm saying? So like it was just like it was love, man. It was just love, like in the sense of like just sharing our experiences, man. Then you would go home during the breaks. You see people at the malls, so you see people at at different events and little parties and stuff like that, man. And so just that, but Chicago itself as a city, man, there's a lot of corruption and there's a lot of systematic issues in Chicago, and unfortunately when that type of stuff happens, the people who suffer are the people who are on the low socioeconomic, on that end. And far too often it's us, Black folks, or people of color. And so what I mean by that is like, I'll give you an example. The South Side is predominantly Black, right? And so when it was snow, I used to date a girl who lived up north. And so up north is predominantly white, you know what I'm saying? So when it was snow, if I was at her house, we wake up in the morning and, the alleys are shoveled out and, the street has come through, what I'm saying? The city came through and they shoveled, they got the plows out on the streets. I'm not lying. On the South Side, it'd be a week. Like sometimes it'd be a week before they came through the alleys, because think about it, you got your cars in the alleys, so you got to shovel yourself out. You know what I'm saying? Or I remember my car just being stuck in, but think about that. Those are like you creating barriers. You know what I'm saying? Like, so now people got to go to work, this, that, and the other. And so it just goes to show you how in one city, like you can have people who, like you can talk to somebody who's from underrepresented, a person of color from Chicago, and they'll be like, man, Chicago, boy, you got to be careful, this, that, and the other. You talk to somebody white, they're like, oh, Chicago, crazy, awesome. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I love Chicago, don't get me wrong, but they don't encounter that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so a part of that is, we talk about systematic racism. That's a part of it. And the education, the schools, some like the majority of schools, they've torn down and made it, and they brought in charter schools. They tore down the schools that were in the South Side, the schools that were on the West Side, and these were schools that, were in the predominantly, neighborhoods of Black and brown folks. And so, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying every school that they tore down was, perfect, but, at the same time, they weren't looking to tear down the schools up north, what I'm saying? They were, on the north side and things like that. So, you lose your identity in a sense, we start taking those schools out, out of the community. Yeah. And then you start building, these college preparatory schools in these communities, and you're busting white students in, and the students who live in these communities aren't even being able to benefit from, schools that are in their community, and so that's where you really start running into issues at. So there's let me off topic, man. I get to talking, man.
Yeah. I'm sure people can understand that already. But look, but check this out though, bro. I'll let you talk because I know your heart. You know what I'm saying? And so, but I wanted to say this though, because I'm building towards something here where we talk about basically why you're, what makes you so passionate. That beginning. We talked about who your target for your passion is. Now, what I want to do is, I try to throw different questions out at people, but pretend like you had a quiver. People typically have arrows there, but yours is all of your strengths, right? Maybe let's say 3 or 4 of your strengths. Tell me what those 3 to 4 strengths are and how would you use those in bettering the life of someone who went through what you went through or potentially worse, So how would you, first of all, identify your strengths and then list how you use those in order to help the youth?
Yeah, mine is they're kind of all encompassing, man. Communication. I'm really big, obviously, with talking, but they don't have an advertising and marketing background. That's a big part of it as well. But just communicating, like and honesty, man. Be like, transparency is a big part with me. So I would say communication, transparency, and the ability to build relationships. That's important. And so what I would say is like using all three of those. They're all encompassing. Like you might think like, oh, it all sounds alike, but here's the thing. When you're communicating, I always tell people that um, if you don't have communication, a lot of things can be misconstrued, and you can have something really small can blow into something really big, right? Because you don't have that communication. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes people they just based on nonverbal communication, they decide, what you may be thinking about something, they could be completely off. Instead of them just asking you, saying, "Hey, man, what's going on, Lamont? What's up with you?" You know what I'm saying? And instead, they sit there and they say, "Man, this brother tripping." You know what I'm saying? Like, he think because he got a little podcast, he know this, that, and the other. You know what I'm saying? And so, that becomes misconstrued. Now you got somebody, now as a kid say, now you got to opt out of nowhere because somebody, their own insecurity, has created this, so communication is key. You have to communicate. I think a lot of things, even myself, through text, I've lost friendships and relationships, because somebody misconstrued a text, or my phone. People know me. My phones are always bogus, and bogus means they're not good, they're bad. And so I think, having communication. I'm one of the people that, if I have an issue, man, we're gonna talk. And I don't mean that like an aggressive, man. I'm just saying, like, I think, if you have an issue with somebody, you should be able to come to them and talk to them. So like I've used that, somebody who's going through something, like, let me talk to you. You know what I'm saying? And then and the thing about communication is it's not always about you talking, it's about you listening too. And I think that's where we go wrong a lot. Sometimes we always want to give it out what we got to say, and we're not listening to what somebody's trying to tell us. And if you're not listening, you're gonna miss something that can really help them. You know what I'm saying? It might be something they say that you pick up on, and you can really help them right there. So it's important to listen. Sometimes you've been through stuff, I've been through stuff, man. When you go through sometimes you need to just get stuff out. You know what I'm saying? Like you just want to, and us as Black folks, man, I'm really proud of this generation, man, and what they're doing with mental health, man, because we didn't do it with our generation. You know what I'm saying? And I tell people, man, it's because the generation before us went through civil rights. So for this, so for us to, complain about anything was like us being soft. You know what I'm saying? Like, man, you tripping. I went through this, that, and the other. Like, so we passed that down, and that wasn't right, like, and so I'm proud of this generation right now, this younger generation, because they're really, preaching, mental health awareness and things like that. And it's important, man, because the way we grew up, we just held stuff inside, and eventually at some point, they say pressure bust pipes, it'll bust your pipes. And for me, like, I'd be in college, and I'd have my days, I'd be in the dorm and just start bawling, thinking about what's going on, everything was just too much, and I didn't feel like I had nobody to talk to, about that type of stuff. So it's important, so communication, and then transparency, be like, I think it's important, man. Like for myself, I'm big on people knowing who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like if you talk to somebody, like you talked about, you alluded to me living in a lot of different places. So like if you talk to somebody who knew me from Tampa, if you talk to somebody who knew me from Carbondale, where I went to college, if you just talk to somebody who knew me from Iowa when I was in Iowa, if you knew somebody from Dallas, Baltimore now where I'm at, I guarantee if they got in the room and they all start talking, it'd be the same conversation. It wouldn't be like, oh, Derris did that. They'd be like, no, yeah, I can see him doing that because he did this. Like it'd be the same. I'm the same person, bro. I'm transparent. People know who, where they stand with me. And they know what I stand for. Like I don't teeter back and forth and things like that. I'm not saying I'm perfect now, brother. I make mistakes now. I make mistakes. There's things I can definitely improve on. But my point being that I pride myself in that transparency, man. Because one of the things I live by is the golden rule. It sounds so simple, but it's the truth, man. Treat people how you want to be treated, man. So when I encounter somebody, man, like I want them to just be them genuine selves. That's what I'm saying. That's what I want. Like if somebody try, because I tell people when you put on a facade or you try to be something else, you have to do that all the time. That's a lot of work. You know what I'm saying? Like easiest thing you can do is be yourself. You know what I'm saying? So and then for myself, if I'm around somebody who's acting like that, I can't trust you. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't even know who you are. You know what I'm saying? Like, brother, I haven't even met you. I met your representative. I haven't even met you yet. So I think it's important to have transparency, man. And then the ability to build relationships, man, is important. Because you never know where that can lead to. Like I met you on the road, man. We were both working, in admissions, and then now we're able to come together and try to do more. You know what I'm saying? For students, you know, we felt handcuffed in our, you know, in those positions we were in. You know, there's only so much we can do. But now you create apparatus, you know what I'm saying, where you can bring on people like myself and other people, you know, that you've met, you know what I'm saying? And you never know what I might say or they might say or something you might say that might just touch somebody. And that's all that matters. If you can reach that one person, then you've done everything. You know, it's worth, you know, everything you're trying to do. And so it's important, you know, and so building relationships and maintaining relationships, man. I think too many times you see people just burn them down. It's like, you can't keep doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like, yes, you know, I tell my students, man, right now I'm a college and career coordinator at high school, man, here in Baltimore. And I tell them students, I say, hey, you have to, like, you know, it's important to maintain these relationships. I talk about building relationships and maintaining relationships. Like, you can't, like, you know, you can't just sit here and, you know, I tell them that in reference to, you know, their you know, their behavior in the classroom, you know, with their professors, because you never know, or their teachers, you never know when you're going to need a letter of recommendation, you know what I'm saying? And I tell them that in the job place. You know, I just had one of my students, man, he worked at Popeyes for 5 days and he quit. And he was like, he said, man, they had me seasoning chicken for like 5 straight days. I couldn't do with that raw chicken no more. And I was like, hey, bro, I understand. I said, but you trying to build a resume. I'm like, you got to at least give 2 weeks or like try something, like, you know, I was like, because you can't continue to do that. He's like, no, I'm not like that, man. Just that raw chicken, man. You know, I'd be cool if they'd switch me out, you know, here and there. And so I felt the brother's pain, man. But I was he's 16, man, so trying to give him that, you know, explain to him the importance of, building relationships. And, you know, like, you know, I told him, you know, like, you never know that supervisor from Popeyes might know somebody somewhere else at the place you might want to work, and he could prevent you from getting that job, or he could help you, you know, in getting that in getting that job. So, and I told him, you know, that it doesn't mean that, you know, there won't be situations where, you know, the jobs that you're at, they will be in the wrong, you know, but, you know, just because they're wrong, it doesn't mean you have to match that energy. You know, is a way you can leave and just, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a situation where you have to prove something to them. Like, I'm gonna show them, you know, like this, that, and the other. So, you know, just trying to give life lessons like that, man. But going back to the 3 that you asked me, man, communication, transparency, and relationship building, man. Relationship building is key, man. Like, it takes you a long way. Like, you never know. Like, you know, you can, you know, opportunities can open up. I tell students about that too. When I was at the university, I would tell them all the time, you know, when you're on this campus, like prospective students, I would say join these student organizations. You know, that's what I did when I was in college, because you never know who you're going to meet. You know what I'm saying? And that person might get a job somewhere in California, and now all of a sudden a job comes open. They're like, hey, my buddy who was in that club with me, he'd be perfect for this job. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so you never know, you know, who's paying attention to, you know, what you're doing in networking. That's what college is about, you know, meeting those people and having those experiences.
Again, you listen to the Stay True podcast, being brought to you by True Beast Coaching. We have my man Derris Hawkins.
Yeah, you gotta do it like the DJ Clue, old school. I got that new stuff.
Hey, I'm multi-generational, brother. Hey, but you know what? Also, too, Derris, I want in this conversation, man, it's a lot of different things I'm gonna get out in a short period of time, but I want to talk about your next steps, man. But as we segue into that, I want you to tell me, if you could, what would a perfect world look like from all the stuff that you went through, all the stuff that you want to do, and you had a chance, somebody said, here's 3 wishes. What would that perfect world look like for somebody who's been through what you've been through?
Perfect world for me, from a professional aspect, it would be the work that I'm doing now, the work that I'm passionate about wouldn't exist, because we wouldn't have the equity problems that we have. We wouldn't have the diversity problems that we have. We wouldn't have the inclusion problems that we have. You know what I'm saying? That students of color, or first generation students, students who identify from LGBTQ plus communities, you know, when they're on a college campus at a predominantly white institution or any college campus, you know, they would feel a sense of belonging. You know, they would never feel like I need support. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they would feel like, you know, like the majority of students feel on that campus, you know, oh yeah, life is good. They would be proud of their institutions they went to. So from a professional standpoint, you know, my work wouldn't exist. Students wouldn't have that need. You know, there would be support needs, you know, but not to the point of, you know, where it is now. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, you know, that would be a big part of it. From a personal standpoint, you know, I think it's, you know, man, I'll touch on it lightly, man, like, because I'll go forever on this, man. But I think you know, it's disheartening that we live in a country where they don't start paying attention to you know, the effects of drugs until white kids start overdosing in the suburbs, you know. And now all of a sudden there's a war on opioids, you know. But you know, when we were the ones dying, you know, like right now, like if they're locking up drug, like if somebody ODs, they're going after the drug dealer, like for heroin and opioids. But you know what I'm saying, but when it was, when it was us dying, you know what I'm saying, like it was like, they weren't going after the drug dealers for murder, you know what I'm saying, they were just locking up people just to be locking them up. Like we talked about the the crime bill, the 94 crime bill, and and how they were putting brothers away forever, you know what I'm saying, forever, ever, and that was part of a bigger plan, But I'm saying is, we need programs in place. You know what I'm saying? Like where are the programs? Where's the empathy? You know what I'm saying? Like, the empathy they're showing now for, for the opioid crisis and how they want to put money into it. Now they want to put more social workers out there. They want to put more, all these programs why we didn't have that before? You know what I'm saying? Like, why wasn't that why was there a call for that? And I know there was a call for that because I lived in Chicago and I've seen the people doing grassroots programs out there, you know what I'm saying, coming out their own pocket to pay for it, trying to help people, get off these streets, and work with homeless people, work with people who are on drugs. So, but we don't, the grants and the stuff that, the money that's out there now, and the people who are benefited from it far too often are our people, you know what I'm saying? So I think, that's something that I would want to, I would want to see change, man. If I could, if anything, that would be because that's going to change families, man. You know how many families, one of the things that really makes me mad, man, as they say, grinds my gears, is when they talk about the Black father. You know what I'm saying? And they always crack that joke about the absentee Black father. I never laugh at that. You know what I'm saying? Like, and my reason being is, look how many Black men are incarcerated. You know what I'm saying? Look how many Black men who who have been murdered. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's by police or it's by crime. And we talk about crime being violent crimes in those socioeconomic areas. You know what I'm saying? So if all these Black men are being incarcerated, if all these Black men are being killed, what do you think? How are they going to be in the household? You know what I'm saying? Like, they're not going to be in the home if all this, this is constantly happening. And then think about the anxiety of a Black man, you know what I'm saying, of a Black father. You know what I'm saying? Like, like everything you've been through. Now you have a Black son, and you worried, you don't even want him to go out the house, because of, what's going on out these streets, So, I think, it's crazy, man. I really do think it's just, it's an epidemic, man, that people aren't paying attention to, is the the removal of the Black father from the household, man. That's what they did in the slave days, man. People don't want to hear that. People always, when it comes to us, they never want to talk about how history has an effect on on what's going on currently. They'll talk about it with the Holocaust, they'll talk about it with anything, but the Pearl Harbor, they'll talk about it. When it comes to Black folks, they don't want to talk about slavery. And what they did in slavery, they took the father out of separate him from the mother and the father. They would sell him away, you know what I'm saying, or separate him, put the mother in the house, whatever it may be, separate them. And that's, because, they divide and conquer, you know what I'm saying? And so that's something you see repeated today, man. And I won't, keep preaching on that, but that's just something that, we don't pay attention to. As Father's Day is approaching this Sunday, I think we need to put shine a brighter light on these Black fathers, man. We see a lot of these negative images, man. I look at brothers like you. I know my, all my friends, man, who have kids are awesome fathers. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm be honest with you. The percentage of people I know, myself personally, know who are fathers that are not, who are absentee fathers, intentionally, or, just not good fathers, is probably like 2%. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's ridiculous, that we have this stereotype, or we have this light shined on, a negative light shined on Black fathers, man. That's one thing that I can't live with, brother.
I'm glad you said that, Derris, because I knew that was a direction you was gonna probably go in. And what I like to do, because you saying some very positive things, bro. We talked about your next steps. We talked about so many different things, man, that I'm gonna take away from this conversation, because my goal, especially with this particular podcast, man, is to pour into people. My everyday life, to pour into people. Now, there's a lot of people that they're not ready to be poured into, right? They maybe later. But, I think that requires a little patience. So you said some reasons to me why to be patient with those who are not yet ready to be poured into. Maybe not now, but maybe later. So give them a little time. And I appreciate you talking the way you're talking, man. In closing, this is what I want to do, Derris, because I love to give people the floor. And somebody might be saying, well, you already gave him the floor. You've been talking and talking. But you know what, Derris? I want you to pick. I mean, so many people, that we could talk to. You talked about different groups, right now, but I want you to talk to a very, very specific group right now. I'm gonna give you the floor. I'm gonna give you a couple of minutes to speak life into whatever group of people that you want to talk to, whether it be males, whether it be young males, whatever that may be for you. I need you to speak life into those people right now. For the next couple of minutes, the floor is yours.
Yeah, man, I'm gonna speak to young black men and women. When I say young black men and women, I mean, from college all the way down to kindergarten, for VPK, whatever whatever it may be. What I want y'all to know is, you're loved. You know what I'm saying? You are. You know what I'm saying? You have support. You have, and although sometimes it may not seem visible, it's there. And I want you to know that, when you're in these classrooms and you're in these programs, whether it's a summer program, after school program, or something like that, and people are telling you what you can't be. You hear it all the time. Like when people say, I was told I couldn't be this, so I became that. That's what I want you to do. Use that as motivation. You don't let somebody decide your future. That happens far too often. And that's what happened in the past. With our communities. They told us what we were going to be. We didn't accept that. That's another thing. Educate. Another thing I'll tell y'all too. Educate yourselves about yourselves. Understand where you came from. We strong people. Don't let them tell you something opposite. We are strong people, and we when we came from Africa, we was kings and queens. They tell us that it was they bought slaves from the slaveholders in Africa. No, they kidnapped the best. They didn't. You think they're gonna go over the country and take the worst? No, they kidnapped the best. And so and every time they tried to bury us, what I'm saying, we continue to rise. So for you all, understand where you come from, and know who you are. Don't fall for this narrative, and if you work hard, just work hard. What I'm saying? I'm just saying I'm talking in the classrooms, what I'm saying? Handle your business, and let your work show. Let your work show who you are. What I'm saying? And there's gonna be barriers. There's gonna be stuff you have no control over. What I'm saying? It's not gonna be fair. I'm gonna tell you that right now. It will never be fair. I don't care what nobody says. It will never be fair. They've dug such a deep hole in this country. That if in our lifetimes, and everybody I'm talking to all the way down like VPK, it'll never. They couldn't do enough for it to be fair. So understand it's never going to be fair, but we know. So if you're waiting for that moment, that's not going to happen. So, just continue when you're on these campuses, when you're at a college campus, when you're in your high school, when you're in your middle school, your grammar school, seek out those people, that want to see you do well. What I'm saying? And in your friend group, surround yourself with people who want to do well. I'll tell you right now, your own friends' insecurities can sabotage your dreams and your hopes. And you don't even realize it. But they'll make you feel like, you dumb for trying to be smart. Think about that. And so understand that, the people, don't hang out with, hang out with the people that want to see you win, regardless if they win. You know what I'm saying? Those are the people, I've always, all my life, I've surrounded myself with people who rooted for me, and I rooted for them, and to this day I still do, and they still do as well. And that's important, because if you see somebody, if you see yourself winning and they're frowning, you might not need to be around that person. So understand that. But understand the people that you are loved and you are cared for. I know at times it feels like it's you against the world, but it's not. You have your whole Black community here for you. The media tell you that we don't care for our own. And that's a lie. And I tell you that's a bold-faced lie. A lot of Black people helped me get to where I'm at. You know what I'm saying? They're helping a lot of Black people try to get to where they want to go. And my man Lamont right here, he's doing the exact same thing. And so, and the same thing with the Stay True podcast and Where's My Docs and other organizations like that. They're all putting all together to help, you young Black folks get to where you're trying to go, and you should live your dreams, And so understand that. Don't ever feel like you can't do something. Or don't let anybody stop you from doing something. Nobody can stop you from achieving your dreams but yourself. So make sure you stay focused. Anything you want to do, you find the people who are going to help you get there. And you say, and if you feel like you're not with the right friend groups, hey, it's time to find new friends. Then sometimes you outgrow people. That's gonna be a part of life. You'll learn that along the way. And that doesn't mean that you selling out or you're not staying true. As long as you're true to who you are, and you understand, now there are people who sell out and there are people who don't stay true. So don't get that confused. You need to stay true, as the podcast says, stay true to who you are as an individual, but don't lose track of, your identity trying to be successful. That's another part of that lesson as well. Just, success isn't white. And I would say that's important to understand. Just because you reach a level where you're surrounded by white folks doesn't make you successful. Success has a lot to do with it. Doesn't have to do with money. It has to do with you being happy. Your people, people around you are happy. Your family, and you're steady growing. So they understand that. And so that's important. So stay true, stay you. Find those people. What I'm saying? Two of them are right here on this podcast. There's always people willing to help if you're willing to seek them out and you're willing to be helped. That's a big part of it as well too.
I love it, man. Thank you. And this is why you were invited to the podcast. I appreciate you, brother. Again, you've been listening to Stay True Podcast, brought to you by T.R.U.E Coaching. We had today my homeboy, Mr. Derris Hawkins-Smith. I'm always here with you. I'm Lamont, your facilitator, your host. Remember, stay true where triumph requires unlimited effort.